spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Perfect. Let me turn your volume down a bit.
Spaghetti. Okay, well, you're going down
Okay.
to 0.
Yep. All right.
Spaghetti about it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Star Trek Wars, your official bootleg Strange New Worlds podcast. My name is Jeremy. Joining me tonight, it's he's that guy that's here. Jasper. It's Jasper, everybody.
I'm just. Wait, who are you?
Oh,
Did you say acute memory loss? Mister, there's nothing cute about memory loss. Sir, I seem to be suffering from some form of synaptic degradation. All I can remember is 2 things. 1, I'm a podcaster. And 2, this is my moment.
Jasper, this is your moment. And to my left, with so many cool tattoos, it would make Luke jealous. For a little while, anyway. My co-host and co-life partner, Chelsea. Hey, Chelsea.
Hey, guys.
The episode we're reviewing tonight will be rated on a scale from 1 to 10 by us, the co-hosts. And you guys in the Star Trek Wars Council left a rating on our Facebook page. If you wish to join the council and have your vote counted for next week's episode, head over to that page. You can find us by searching for Star Trek Wars. The council should pop up right at the top. There you can rate episodes yourself and can also leave a comment that'll be potentially read on air. It's a great community. We're all on there, very active, and love talking Trek with you. Now, before we get started, right before recording, Jordan and I found out Chelsea had not seen the latest trailer for the Babylon 5 cartoon movie. So we cannot move forward. Animated. And we cannot move forward until she sees that. So we thought, what better time to do it than recording? Let's show that trailer to you live, Chelsea. Let me get that booted up. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
I was there.
I was there.
At the dawn of the third age.
This is an Interstellar News Network special report. 2 years after winning the Shadow War, Captain John Sheridan, president of the Interstellar Alliance, is leaving Babylon 5 for what many expect to be the last time.
I don't need an Interstellar Alliance. You're my universe, Dylan. I love you. A friend of mine once said, the future is all around us, waiting in moments of transition to be born in moments of revelation. This is just such a moment. Fire this baby up.
Oh my God.
Something's wrong. What kind of energy does this facility use?
Tachyons.
Oh, crap. Where the hell am I?
Yeah,
Yes, I'm stuck.
I'm sorry. Are you stuck?
I think I'm good.
We're getting the okay.
I've seen enough. I've seen what I need.
I get it. You don't want to be spoiled on the rest. I understand.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
This was your first look at Sheridan, so I know you're excited for the next station commander of Babylon 5.
He sounds like Garibaldi.
Maybe just because he said, oh, crap.
I don't know. It seems pretty boring. It's like they put a bunch of bright colors in there to try to make it exciting instead of actually making it exciting.
Wow. Babylon 5 boring. Okay. Send those to our corrections department. You guys listen at home. We'll read those off. All the reasons why Babylon 5 is super exciting.
At least now when it looks like Minecraft in space, they can say it was intentional.
Okay, this is not going well.
No, this is not what we wanted, but maybe what we should have expected. All right. If you do find a correction for today's episode, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know by writing us on Facebook, or you can email us at StarTrekWarsPod@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave a voice message instead, you can call us at www.speakpipe.com/Star Trek Wars. We may play your message on the next episode. Now, without further ado,
so let's get down to the business.
Yes, let's get down to the business. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We're not reviewing that one. Okay. No spoilers. Sorry, wrong podcast. We did watch it last night, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Spoiler free, like hit it or quit it.
That's as complicated as my hit it or quit it for this week's episode, Jordan.
Okay.
Which is a great segue into Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters. Written by Davey Perez, and Kirsten Beyer, directed by Eduardo Sanchez. Returning to a planet that dredges up tragic memories, Captain Pike and his landing party find themselves forgetting everything, including their identities, as he confronts a ghost from his past. I will say, Jordan, for the most part, I did enjoy Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's better than Crystal Skull, for sure.
Okay, well, I expect any movie I go to see in the theater to be better than Crystal Skull.
And you could take that to the bank.
I will.
Okay. As for this week's episode, let's find out. Let's go through our initial reactions and find out if we are going to hit it.
Hit it.
I quit.
Or quit it.
To hell with you.
Jordan, let's start with you. Would you hit it or quit it this week?
Well, Jeremy, I too know of a planet that dredges up old memories. It's called Earth. I guess it's a mild hit it for me.
Yeah. What about you, Chelsea?
Yeah. I wouldn't quit it, but like flick it or something.
Flick it.
It's like a little tap. I don't know.
All right, very lukewarm, but not quit. Yeah, I'm right there.
Lukewarm.
Oh, Luke. Yeah, I have to say, this is tough. I want to hit it like Pike hits his yeoman's.
Zach?
Zach.
It's King Zach to you.
And I also want to quit watching because this episode gave me a terrible headache. But we'll get into that later. Let's start with what worked. Let's head into our pros. Jordan, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, I mean, Pike is in this week's episode. That's a pro. Much more Pike screen time. Unfortunately, he doesn't know who he is for 3/4 of the episode. But the difficulties of having a romantic relationship while in Starfleet, especially with someone on another ship, is kind of broached here, which you don't see hardly ever in like TNG or the original series. You pretty much would have to date someone on the ship, which is also complicated. I see it a little bit in Enterprise, but it is interesting, especially since they're both captains. Like best case scenario, you're going to see each other maybe a couple times a year.
Yeah.
So I understand like their perspective as far as them both being captains and having responsibilities and not many other people being able to relate to them. So I do see that aspect of things. Unfortunately, it's just who Pike is dating that I have the issue with. Also, like Second Contact, I was listening to the Pod Directive, and they were talking about how there aren't a ton of Star Trek episodes that focus on Second Contact. There's some Lower Decks episodes for sure that do. That's kind of their whole thing. But it's kind of cool to see them go back to Rigel 7, where there had been an incident, and Pike is trying to right a wrong. And we do see kind of a strange new world this week. So we're visiting a planet, a fairly, a better looking set than what you would have gotten from TOS for sure. A little light on the extras this week for sure, but I think it looked pretty good overall. It was a very original series type plot for sure. I could see this being, an episode of the original series, and it kind of stems from the Cage a little bit, the backstory of it. So it kind of makes sense. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen a whole lot of episodes that deal with a crew member who is left behind and presumed dead. I know that's kind of like the crux of Star Trek Beyond to an extent, but I think that's kind of a really interesting premise where you leave the planet, you think someone's dead, and they're left there, and what becomes of it. This is like a worst case scenario version of that, but it was interesting to kind of see that. They do really love, this is kind of moving into the neutral zone here, panning away from Pike straight to the fireplace. Like, we get it. He gets burned alive. Like, okay. They do that so often. Anytime he's in his quarters, it's like he's walking out the door. They follow him, and then they zoom in on this flame as he walks past. Like, oh my gosh, guys, we get it. I also get, this is more con territory, but I get the ringing sound in an audio cue. It's an audio cue to let us know that the crew is being affected, but goodness gracious, it gets old real quick when you have back-to-back scenes of like this tinnitus inflicting sound. Like, I guess it's a necessary evil to an extent, but I feel terrible for anyone who watches the episode that actually suffers from tinnitus.
I didn't before.
Yeah, I do now. I wish the totem guy, I guess his name is Luke with a Q. I wish he would have gotten stabbed instead of Lon. And how many phasers did they leave behind on this planet? There's at least half a dozen. Like, were they going down to just commit genocide against these people? Like, how did they get forced out of there in the first place? These guys had like sticks and stones. I would like to know. I also think this episode would have played out a lot better if it were a season 3 episode, and this episode was actually their first visit to the planet. I understand they're trying to connect like an older story, but like we would have had time to set up the Zach character and see him as a yeoman, and then kind of be shocked that we find him still alive after seeing him presumably die on an away mission. So I think this could have been changed a little bit narratively. When you have a show like this, you could set a story like this up by having a character. It's interesting that he was a yeoman too. You don't see many yeomen. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen. I guess I've maybe seen one male yeoman before on Star Trek. So, lastly, Pike's girlfriend. I think she's going to die. I think she has to die at the end of this episode. I was like, clearly this is not the girl for him. So that's probably the only way to resolve that issue. Seeing as how there's another relationship for Pike in the future. Now that they've kind of doubled down on their relationship this week, I thought this would have been a good opportunity for them to break up. Mm-hmm. But I guess they kind of needed him to realize that he really liked her in order to pull off the medallion story and have him come back. And, so we'll see where that goes. I still don't like her very much, but, not that I wish her to die, but her character can.
Sure.
So that's all the neutral zones and pros for me. What did you think, Chelsea?
It was very much just like a kind of normal Star Trek episode.
Yeah. Which
I don't think is bad, but coming off of season 1 of Strange New Worlds, it's a little weird. I am glad that Pike was back. I liked the Luke. Mm-hmm. I didn't even realize that was his name. I really liked him. I thought he added a lot. I thought his performance was really good. I like that we're seeing a lot more of Mbenga this season. I don't feel like we got a ton of him in season 1. So, and I liked his weird little comment where he's like, oh yeah, that's what every doctor wants, is to be assigned a away mission because of their combat skills.
Yeah.
So I liked that.
But he's so badass. Like, sorry, you look amazing in fight scenes.
Yeah. But I mean, it goes against everything that he kind of stands for, right?
Right, exactly.
He's a healer.
No one's asking DeForest Kelly to punch people.
Yeah.
Where's the green juice this week?
Unneeded.
Apparently.
I thought it was kind of funny when Pike mentioned that his hands were like soft and not hands of people who do labor.
I made that same comment about my hands like 3 days ago.
And I also love that Luke is like, oh, you're wearing blue. That means you work in the quarry. But then like, he picks up something like, oh, I think you belong in the castle. Like something about you isn't right.
No tattoos.
Was that it? When obviously all he had to do is like look at his perfectly styled hair and be like, hey, I don't know that you're one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the reaction to anybody that sees Anson Mount in public. Like, you don't belong with us.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be here, right?
You'll get a Home Depot.
But yeah, I mean, it was fine. I liked the story. I felt like it could have been a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
But I did like the overall storyline. King Zach. That was never mind. That's not a pro. And then of the 3 people that got killed that they showed on the screen, I thought it was cool that one of them, his initial was C. Plummer. And I think that they did that for Christopher Plummer. But that's just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It was fine. I don't think that Luke should have gotten stabbed instead of Lon.
Okay.
Jordan. Okay. But I'm also not wishing death on random actresses. Jordan. So.
Not the actress, just the character.
It's definitely a pattern we're noticing.
Yeah,
if that's what we're saying.
Something that we should just keep on our radar.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Pike is in this one. And Pike plus Mbenga is gold. Gold! As much as I love thoughtful, inspirational Trek, I also love the punch. Like I like to see the punches. And we get both this week as we get to see just how ruthless and forceful Pike can be when the memory of who he is has been stripped away. And I'm glad he was able to come to his senses at the end, but come on. Yeoman Zach. What a grade A douchebag. Like, and if you want to make someone unlikable, just name him Zach. No offense to my brother. Like, what was Pike supposed to do? It was a botched assignment. People were killed and injured. Like you said, Jordan, they had a wagon full of assault rifles. One of them got hit with a rock, so they all fled. Like, what is he supposed to do? He didn't leave Zach thinking he was alive at the time. Like, there are 3 people that were killed, and as far as we know,
Zach doesn't know that.
Yes, true. But the other 2 people did die, so like it seemed like they were all dead. But yeah, I can see why Zach would take umbrage with that. But like, once you talk to Pike, you should know, like, good, get me out of here. Let's leave.
I think the fact that 5 years had passed definitely adds something to it.
Yeah, it's like a Thomas Riker situation.
Boimler.
Yeah, it changes you. I do love that this situation had really weighed on Pike, and the entire premise of Star Trek's first episode, The Cage, came directly after the mission on Rigel 7, and Pike was this close to quitting Starfleet to live with his horses because of that whole situation. And that's cool. I need to rewatch it. I know he has like this whole like opening moments with Dr. Old
Boyce?
Yeah, Boyce, Dr. Old Man Boyce, where he talks about that. And I think during The Cage, doesn't he go back? Isn't there like the Telosians whisk him back to, in his mind, to Rigel 7? Because I remember seeing like purple sky in a castle in the distance. Yep. So yeah, I wouldn't mind revisiting.
It's a nice matte painting of it for sure.
Yeah.
And there's a saddle in Pike's quarters too that you kind of see in this episode as well. It kind of ties it in a little bit.
Sweet. Yeah, Yeoman Zach. What a dweeb. I really liked Reed Birney as Luke. I thought this was a top-notch guest appearance, and one of, if not the biggest highlight of the episode for me, was his portrayal of Luke. I loved his character. I loved the performance. A lot of the episode's exposition was handled by Luke, and that is not easy as a performer to deliver in an entertaining manner. I love like all the lore that he delivered and the mystery tattoos that he inked over. The entire point of it. What are you giggling at, Jordan?
You just working on next time on over here.
Okay,
You just reminded me of something.
I was about to throw down on my boy Luke. Like, he's awesome. He's tatted up. And the entire point of it is it better to remember the pain and hurt or to forget it and accept that? That's a very Star Trek premise. I do wish maybe it was fleshed out a little bit more in this episode, but like on the surface, I really like that idea for a Star Trek episode. And I think when it does work its best, it's following this character of Luke. Neutral zone wise, it's nice to see Ortega's more, but she still wasn't exactly a main character this week, and we didn't exactly learn anything more about her. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. We got that opening moment with her log and talking about getting to leave the ship, and we saw that like last year in one of the maybe Star Trek Day or something, like a little preview, and it kind of alluded to more Ortega's, and we really didn't get that aside from that. She got to do the cool thing and remember who she is, the pilot, but that's literally the only thing we know about her, so we still didn't learn anything about her, except for like she's fun, she's great at her job. Yep. That's about it. That's all I really have for cons. I did really love. I talked a little bit about like the assault on the castle. I dug that from a pew pew side. I thought that was a fun seeing like Pike shooting and fighting with Mbenga at his side. Like I love that stuff. I love those two characters and actors. Seeing him deflecting phaser rifles from like a dish he picks up off the table.
That was pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
It's a serving tray just.
Yes, I love it.
I did notice none of us really mentioned what's happening on the Enterprise in this episode.
I thought about that and it didn't really. I'm not going to mention it in my cons either.
Yeah.
That's probably where I was hoping we would maybe get more, but really nothing happened up there.
Yeah. I mean, Ortegas kind of has a moment, but it's a long way to go just to have her do what she does, which is fly the ship. So.
Yeah. All right, we'll get more into this episode and maybe what we disliked along with our next time ons and hear from you guys right after this quick break. Star Trek Wars is a podcast that has reviewed every single episode of Star Trek's classic era. We covered the original series through Enterprise in our first 7 seasons on this feed. Season 8 is dedicated to the Trek films, and Season 9, that's where you're at now, where we cover all things modern Trek. You can find every one of those right here on the Star Trek Wars feed, plus bonus content. With now over 350 episodes of Trek content, it's never been a better time to hit it. On top of that, we also have a Patreon channel that covers a wide variety of content, both Trek-related and otherwise. Maybe there's some Babylon 5 content. Maybe there's some Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny content. And to get access to all that, just check us out over at patreon.com/Star Trek Wars. Now, let's get into our... All right, Jordan, you want to lead us off with the cons?
Yeah, there's not a lot of cons for me this week, honestly. I'd say one of the main things is, I guess, the Zach character and just how not only is he changed by this experience, and I can get him kind of being worshipped by the people there because of the technology he has and maybe becoming the king almost willingly, like them putting him in the place of that power and worshiping that symbol that he has, the Star Trek Delta or the Starfleet Delta. But it's just weird, like how cruel he is and how he wants to see Pike suffer, and just like he is an absolute jerk face. So that was kind of interesting. I thought they could have gone something a little more interesting with that. Pike's girlfriend seems to be getting as much, if not more, screen time than him this season as well, which is very weird because she's on another ship that goes other places. Also, I've got to wonder, I don't know if I brought this into question 2 weeks ago when we had Una on trial, or 3 weeks ago now, whatever it's been. But why was she like a lawyer in that case? What?
Right, how is she like part of the JAG and a Starfleet captain with her own ship? And like, that's a lot.
And she's dating Pike. Like, come on.
And she was up for a Commodore.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Was she like 30?
God, I hate overachievers.
I guess Basalk is a little salty because she and Pike have a relationship and she botched that case, so he's holding her back from getting that promotion. I thought that was kind of cool that they bring that up. But other than that, I get that Ortega shushing Spock is supposed to be funny, but like it's closer to being insubordinate each week with kind of her flippant attitude. There are times when it plays for sure, but I think they go to that well way too often with her. Like there needs to be more to her character than like she just gives smart aleck responses. Because at this point, she's basically just akin to season 1 Tom Paris. Like, give her something else, please. So, aside from that, not a ton of cons. I think this episode just, there's so much they could have done with it. I think no matter what they did, there's going to be this feeling that they could have gone a different direction or given us more backstory about this or that. But really, I think the Zach character is kind of the weak point here for me. There is almost too much. Like the Luke guy, his performance was good. He did well with what they gave him. But if I had to hear that old man say totem one more time, I was gonna hit him with a rock. Like the backstory and all of that was just a little much. They went into that. I want to see like the characters interacting with each other. And we haven't had a lot of episodes this week. Like last week, we had a time travel story where we only see La'an. This week, we see, Pike, La'an for a little bit, M'Benga for a little bit, but he gets shot in the knee as well. And we're not getting a whole lot of these interactions of characters that know each other.
Yeah.
So, and this would have been a good reason to have, or a good episode, I guess, to have the engineer in it. But Star Trek apparently doesn't use engineers in their show anymore. So it's very bizarre. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing her if she'd lost her memory. They could have done something funny with her there, but I don't know. Aside from that, and that's all the cons. There's some nitpicky things here and there. Like Chelsea mentioned, this is just kind of like a stock standard episode of Trek, kind of what you expect. Like an away mission, something went wrong, Prime Directive is involved. They got to try to fix something. But it did have a TOS vibe to it. I think something was just missing, and I can't quite put my finger on it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jordan. Chelsea, any cons from you?
Yeah, King Zach.
Zach.
He's gross. And I don't really know that I understand how any of that unfolded for him. So I know that they thought he was dead, so they left. But then
why would they... Zach story?
Why would they take him and put him in a position of power when like other people just showed up, did the same thing,
6 reasons.
And they like put him in the quarry, and it just, I don't know.
He showed up with like the barrel full of the nice laser guns, so maybe they're like, we'll follow you.
Yeah.
How many people did he kill?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's just that I know that like we needed a quote unquote villain, but that was weak.
Have you ever met a Zach you didn't want to punch in the face immediately?
I have. Your brother.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to punch your brother.
Right.
But he is the only exception to the rule. Yeah, that was a big con for me. And
any of our followers, of course. Clearly you're good people. But we're watching you.
Ortegas, I like her, but she is kind of like, I want more about her, because they just keep giving her these, like he said, kind of insubordinate lines and like stupid little, like, we've explored La'an's backstory to death. Let somebody else step up. Like, let's start meeting the rest of the crew.
Yeah. Because
I'm so sick of every like one-off story being a La'an story.
And this episode seemed like it was setting that up for Ortegas.
Yeah.
Like, but we, at the end, in the long run, we didn't learn anything new.
No.
But this would have been the opportunity.
And that's just kind of a bummer, because I really like her. I think her with M'Benga and Pike as the like away mission would have been way more entertaining. I don't know. But yeah, it was standard. I feel like it was a little boring. It wasn't super exciting.
A little safe.
Yeah, I liked the story, but I feel like it could have been done a little differently. I don't know. It was fine. It's kind of a bummer that it was just fine.
Yeah, it makes it harder to talk about.
Yeah.
But I got a few things.
All right, hit us.
I kind of like, yeah, I hate Zach, but I kind of get it. It's like if you were a personal assistant to your boss and you fly into Michigan with him and he leaves you in Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be pissed too.
And that kind of happened to me.
It did kind of happen.
So
it's a little close to home.
Yeah, Detroit, as we know, the Rigel 7 of America.
Yeah. Ugh.
And yeah, okay. So Battelle, we need to let our captains be, free to freak. You know what I'm saying?
Free to freak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tying the captain to one person. If Trek kept doing that, we'd miss out on classic love interests like Edith Keeler, Carol Marcus, Vosh. If Catherine stayed engaged on Voyager, we never would have gotten Alpha Dog Henry Janeway.
Oh my God.
What?
I don't dislike Battelle. I just don't understand their dynamic.
Oh, is that the girlfriend?
Yeah. And okay, so she's only been in a few episodes, and she goes from captain with benefits in her first appearance, which is cool, and I get that, to the person arresting Pike's first officer in her second appearance, to the jagoff in charge of prosecuting Una, his first officer,
Official title,
to now the love of his life.
Yeah.
Those are the only episodes we've seen her in.
Yeah.
Ladies, get your man a trinket.
He'll always come back.
That's right.
Men are just like crows. They love trinkets, shiny things.
Yeah, she's his guiding beacon. There's more chemistry between Kirk and hot dogs than these two. And like, yeah, them getting together whenever they're in the same sector, that's one thing. And I buy that. But it to be anything deeper than that, I haven't seen it shown here. So that kind of took me out. And Una, like, she knows Pike's situation, right? He told her she's one of the few.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So maybe don't give him shit for not wanting to get into serious relationships.
Yeah.
Like it's like he can do anything long term.
Don't tell him that you really like his girlfriend when she just arrested you and tried to get you put away for 20 years.
Yeah.
A week ago.
That too. There's so much.
Yeah.
Like maybe he doesn't want to get involved with people long term. That makes sense. Yeah, and like Una of all people, like you said, Jordan, should not be the one saying, I like her. She's good people.
She's a keeper.
Yeah. And I thought there was a huge missed opportunity for La'an this week. I think it would have been much more interesting and heartbreaking if losing her memories actually made La'an become a sweet, happy person. If it wasn't for her knowing her heritage and living with that shadow on top of her time with the Gorn, would she have been a very different person than we know? And I think that could have been an interesting thread to explore.
Yeah. But I mean, she's also doing slave labor.
True. But maybe just like a more positive. She wasn't doing it right as I guess they were captured.
Yeah, it's scary.
I just feel like there could have been something there.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest one. There has got to be a better way of showing characters hear a high-pitched noise inducing headache than actually forcing that very real loud pain onto your audience 15 times in an episode. An hour after watching it, my head was still killing me an hour after this episode ended. That's just bad storytelling because I probably will never rewatch this episode again unless I'm ready to mute the television every 2 minutes for 10 seconds.
Your helmet, Jeremy.
I gotta put on my Spock helmet to protect me from high-pitched noises, which luckily I do have, but still it's kind of a pain in the ass. And I just don't understand why they did it that way. There's so many different ways to show an audience what's happening and that someone is experiencing pain than to make the audience feel that as well, because that's not fun. And maybe we'll demonstrate a different way to do that in my next time on coming up. But that's what we thought about this week's episode. Let's hear what you guys at home thought about it.
Picking up communication, sir.
Keith Danforth starts us off with, I'm going to perhaps go out on a limb and say this is one of the best episodes of modern Trek, simply because it is the most Trek-like episode written from start to finish. Crew is given a mission to correct a first contact mistake from 5 years ago. They get swept up in a dilemma that involves both social and scientific elements and must figure their way out at the same time the ship and crew has to solve the same dilemma. They're able to solve this problem in a way that connects with their characters. Finally, they enact a resolution to the problem's upholding Starfleet ethos. It was just a really good episode I thoroughly enjoyed from start to finish. We finally got a full episode this season of Pike, as well as some spotlight on Erica, I Fly the Ship Ortega's, who we thought was going to get the shaft in the beginning, but wound up being the closer in the end. I also just liked how the episode kind of dealt with memory, legacy, and how it affects what people do in the moment. It almost felt like a metaphor for people with Alzheimer's, and I felt bad for the guy at the end when he got his memories back and had realized all he lost. It reinforced just how malicious that dude was for exploiting the culture those 5 years, even after knowing what causes the forgetting and not fixing it. 10 bowls of oatmeal. And Keith brought up an interesting point, too, that I was going to write down and totally forgot. That asteroid, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
How is that not violating the Prime Directive by removing it? Isn't that a natural evolution for this planet? An asteroid?
Depends on how you look at asteroids, I suppose. I think Pike kind of bent the rules a little bit here because I don't know what caused that asteroid to hit them. I don't think he went into that, but he's just saying an asteroid, I guess with that material in it, was not intended for that planet originally.
Right. Could be Romulans. But
it could have been. That would have been more interesting.
That makes sense because it didn't like without an asteroid, we wouldn't be on this planet. So it's like it'd still be dinosaurs and they'd be, working 9 to 5. But this asteroid didn't destroy life. It's just the radiation is keeping them from being who they are. So maybe from that aspect,
I can see that for sure. And I think the Prime Directive is a little ridiculous at times. Like if there's an asteroid ruining people's lives on a planet, get rid of it.
That's fair.
I don't know why you needed 2 shuttles to throw it up and then the Enterprise to catch it and then throw up further into space. But,
Yeah, we don't need this alley-ooping. Just play basic basketball.
I know. Jeez.
Why didn't they destroy it?
That was another really good point as well. I don't know why you wouldn't just...
Yeah, it's just going to happen again eventually.
Well, they hurled it toward Romulus, I think. I think
so.
And then we'll find out in Picard Season 1 what happened there. Oh my God. It'll take 100 years, but it's coming. Right for the Romulus sun.
Another thing that was brought up there as far as the pilot thing with Ortegas, it's like several times she's like, I'm the pilot. She's the one that can do it. But there's at least 2 times this episode where like she gets up and number 1 comes to take the comm. She's like, I was the pilot before you were. She's like, who's going to fly the ship? She's like, yeah, I used to do that. Like, it's fine. And then Pike's like, she's like, who's going to fly through the debris field in the shuttle? I was like, this guy. Like, she's like, she's the pilot. She's the only one who can do it. But there's like 2 other people in this episode that are like, nah, we can do the same thing you could do. So
like she couldn't go down on the planet because she was the only person that could pilot the Enterprise. And then Una's like, why don't you escort this person to sickbay? I got it.
Yeah.
Like, well, then why didn't I get to go down?
Kind of a weird choice there, but William Jenks is next up, and he says, this was another solid episode for Strange New Worlds, in which the goal of being structured like an original series episode was particularly obvious. I was reminded of TOS's setups like Spectre of a Gun, where they go down to some planet with a power or alien that they have to figure out after it gets them in a bind. Even some of the sets with pretty obvious matte paintings and the unusual lighting were very retro. I enjoyed the episode, but I'm still not getting the thrills this season that I've gotten with my favorite new Trek. I hope Strange New Worlds is allowed to grow into its own style in the next season or 2, rather than being so tied to imitating the past.
And Mike Schmidt says, I love Strange New Worlds, but this episode was a little painful to watch. It was nice to see more of Captain Pike, though, and Ortega's heroic moments were the best scenes. I'll stop there before I forget who I am.
And Christopher says, Strange New Worlds finally goes to a strange new world for the first time this season. But apparently it was here 5 years ago, messed up, and now has to fix it. Ashamed to say, I have no idea if this was a continuation of another story from Discovery or TOS, but I really enjoyed it. The continued character development is outstanding, particularly with Ortega this week. But I also thought the Pike Batal story arc is progressing with an interesting dynamic. Mbenga and La'an also continued to be fleshed out into an ensemble which is quickly becoming one of my favorites. I can honestly say that most series have at least one character that annoys me. Enter Kess, Neelix, Wynn, Pulaski, Malcolm Reed, et al. But Strange New World is just delightful up and down the lineup. The story itself was okay. Giant meteorite of complex radiation makes you forget stuff every day, but is filtered out by special helmets. Seems like it's grasping a little, but I don't come here for science fact. I come here to be entertained, and Strange New Worlds just keeps doing it over and over. It is relentlessly fantastic. 9 magic radiation blocking helmets out of 10.
And Barbara Whipple says, I like that we finally get more of Captain Pike, and that the plot ties into something mentioned in the story in the cage. And I noticed that the aliens in this episode stuck Pike in a cage. Rigel 7 is kind of a back mythology, but I thought the episode was hard to follow. Didn't Pike notice the whistle and the memory loss the first time that they were there? And I will say that they actually do mention in the script that they were only there for like 4 hours, so it wasn't long enough for that to kick in. How the phasers get left there, that's also a question she has. She says, did he leave all those phasers on the planet, or was the maroon yeoman supposed to have made them himself? It all got left there in that crate. Why they had 6 of them, I don't know. I don't know what they went down there to do originally, but some backstory would have been nice if they elaborated a little bit more. I didn't care for him anyways. The romance wasn't convincing, and I didn't care about that either. The scenes of the crew forgetting things were good, especially the part where the computer starts to talk to the gal who flies the ship. But I thought that Spock should have fought it mentally, or Una's body should have regenerated or something. The most sympathetic character was the old guy, Luke, who tried to help them adjust. Just too dark of a story to leave me feeling happy about it.
And finally, James Heath says, I'm 30 minutes into this right now, and it's a bit of a slog. Season 2 seems lackluster so far.
Thanks, everybody, for writing in. And now it's time to hear from our favorite gatekeeper. He's at the door. He's a knocking. He's here once again. I know he's got some things. There it is, right on schedule. Oh, great gatekeeper, as we all know, since before our sun burned hot in space and before our race was born, you have awaited a question. That question being, Gatekeeper of Forever, what are your thoughts on this week's Strange New Worlds?
She had to talk so loud, I still have a headache for watching this episode. It definitely gave me a ringing in my ears. That's it. I'm moving to Rigel 7, so I forget about this episode. This whole season. Wish the Enterprise would have hurled that asteroid at me. I was actually rooting for Zach this week. This poor guy. He gets left behind on a hostile alien world. What does he do? Give up? No. Pulls up his bootstraps. He just reshapes the entire culture of this planet. He ascends to the throne and he arms his troops with weapons thousands of years more advanced than anything they have ever seen. He lives in a castle, for crying out loud. Talk about character development. What does he get for his efforts? The only kind of date I can get. A court date. I give this episode a 1. One time I almost liked an episode of Strange New Worlds.
There it goes. Oh, never fails to disappoint. At one point I almost wrote, man, I wish I could forget this episode. And I was like, am I becoming the Gatekeeper of Forever? I immediately took that off, and I'm so glad that he didn't disappoint with it. All right, let's review this episode, Chelsea. What do you give among the Lotus Eaters?
I think I'm just going to give it like 6 punchy pikes.
Okay, perfect. Jordan?
I like a good Pike punch. I heard he serves it at all of his dinners. I'm going to give it, I guess I'll give it a 6.5, 6.5 cranial discomforts.
Okay, yep, we're all right in there. I'm going to give this one a 6.5 again, like I did last week. But I'll raise it to a 7 if Paramount tones down that ringing and brings back Prodigy. Star Trek Wars Council, they're right there too. Average score of a 6.58. Now let's get into our next time on. Jordan, what do you have for next time on?
So I actually got my hands on the original draft of this episode, and there's some very shocking things in it. It originally featured a special guest character played by none other than Adam Sandler in the role of Luke. And Drew Barrymore was originally in the script as his wife. But fortunately, they were both unavailable.
Yeah.
They had another 51st date situation going on.
Unfortunately.
Oh, I said fortunately.
Oh, good. Okay.
Don't twist my words.
Sorry.
I also have another one inspired by something you said that reminded me of an episode of Lower Decks, Crisis Point Part 2. Pike discovers that there's a map of the castle on Luke's back that appears to potentially show the exact location of the memory box. Unfortunately, the combination of Luke's aged, sagging skin and Luke having several of the key areas blacked out because he couldn't bear to look at them, make the map unusable.
Turns out one of his love handles was covering the treasure. As I mentioned in the cons, there are ways to show your audience a character's in pain without hurting said audience. All right, Jordan, Chelsea, I am sending you guys a script right now. Hold on,
Okay.
Jordan?
We'll talk money afterwards.
Okay, of course. I am sending that to you. Now, keep in mind, I'm not in the WGA, so I'm not breaking any picket lines here. But Paramount, if you like what you're about to hear, call me. All right, so are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we open on a planet.
Well, here we are, planet Jorksnock, planet of the Jorksnockers. I'm tough and can still kick ass in high heels.
Yes, I concur. This is indeed planet Jorksnock, the planet of Jorksnockers. And if my calculations are correct, over the horizon is the capital, Jorksnockia. I'm just a beta cuck science officer. Captain, what's our next move? What you says always goes, in my opinion.
You got that straight, Lieutenant Pigscrum. Let's head over to that hill and get a better look at the castle.
Captain, what's wrong?
Nothing, just a bit of a headache. Let's keep moving. Whoa! What are we, in like some kind of a cage? What happened?
Captain?
Who are you people?
You don't remember?
No, I've forgotten everything except maintaining perfect hair. And scene. See, pain and time passage conveyed with no actual pain to the audience, aside from my writing.
Except for the content.
Right, but
that's the easy part.
Audibly, it didn't hurt.
Jorksnocker?
So,
Jorksnock?
let me tabble up this score.
Snockia.
Hey, writing's not as easy as you think, guys.
Jorksnockers?
But with that writer's strike, anybody can do it. So we're going to finish that Babylon 5 trailer?
I should have played that while I was contabulating. Unfortunately, I'm done. Okay. How did Strange New Worlds do this week? Well, using the combined average score of ourselves and you guys who put it at home, among the Lotus Eaters comes to us at an average score of 6.39. And that'll do it for this week. Star Trek Wars is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and anywhere else fine podcasts are heard. Although Stitcher, the Stitcher app, is about to leave us, I think, in July or August.
Why? Where's it going?
We're leaving them.
Ooh, maybe it's going to Jorksnock.
I think they're just financially not viable as a company. If you want to support us in a non-financial way.
Speaking of financial viability.
The absolute best thing you can do is take a minute and leave an iTunes, Apple Podcast review. That might not seem like much, but is huge for the rhythms. Recent reviews are what help other like-minded Trekkies like you find us, so please write a 5-star review. Please, and we'll read it on air. You can also find us on Twitter at The Star Trek Wars. Jordan, always a pleasure. Where can they find you?
You can find me on the council page on Facebook. And if you leave a 5-star review, please don't do it on Stitcher. And we'll see you all next week.
Chelsea, as always, thanks for doing this with me. Where can they find you?
I'm on the council page. Just hanging out.
All right. As for me, well, when I'm not talking Trek, you can find myself and my son Connor discussing all the Bond films at Bonding Together podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Both still operational as of this recording.
Viable companies.
Yes. And that is it for us this week. But Star Trek Wars will return next week to discuss the 5th episode of Strange New Worlds titled Charades, which of course is Latin for Among the Lotus Eaters. But for now, I can't remember how to end the episode.
I think we just hang up.
What's that sound?
I just blare.
Insert horrible noise.
Oh,
Smash Mouth.
Gotta have that somewhere, right?
Love that Jordan says, insert a horrible noise. Oh, Smash Mouth!
What horrible noise could we possibly think of?
Did we even talk about what a Lotus Eater is?
Oh, yeah.
What a Lotus is?
You want to describe that to us?
Isn't a lotus a flower?
I thought it was a car.
Lotus Elise. I sat in one time, and my knees were up by my ears. it's like too tall to sit in a lotus. It's a Lotus Eater. Yeah, it is like a flower, essentially, I believe. Or I know it's a fruit or a flower that they eat in like mythology, I believe, from the Odyssey, where it's like a island of people that eat this fruit to forget bad things that have happened.
James Bond drove a white Lotus in The Spy Who Loved Me.
Mm. I read this
small.
wrong. It's pretty tiny. It's quite the appetite. I read this as Locust Eater like the first 6 times that I read it. I was like, why is this called the Locust Eater? So, Lotus.
Among the Locutus Eaters.
Hey, the Boar Queen.
Ew.
She's eating her drones in Picard.
That's true.
Season 3.
That doesn't make it less gross.
Yeah, that's true.
It just makes it correct, but still disgusting.
Yeah. Factually correct.
Yeah.
Still disturbing. Charades, huh?
Yeah, I have no idea what that's about.
Maybe the crew just plays charades. Like, I would watch that episode 1,000 times. Just the crew playing charades.
Just hang out with each other as your actual characters all together.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with it, honestly.
Thanks for listening to Star Trek Wars.